Welcome, Pewter Report readers, viewers, and listeners to a brand new edition of the Pewter Report podcast, energized by Celsius. Hope everyone had a great weekend. Happy Father's Day to all the dads out there. Happy Juneteenth. We're back here for a Monday episode to start off the week. We will be talking about Bucs camp sleepers on the offensive side of the ball, some of the unsung heroes that have a chance to make an impact on the Bucs and potentially make the 53-man roster after training camp is all said and done. I'm your host, Matt Matera. Joined with me is the face that runs the place, Scott Reynolds of PewterReport.com. Scott, how are you doing? And I don't know about you, but this is going to be the best episode yet.
This is, Matt. I mean, we're starting off the weekend on Monday here. We got roll call coming up, at 4:20 today, where we're going to find out where all these Pewter people are watching today's show from, which is exciting. Do it every Monday. That's one of the benefits of being here live on our 4 o'clock show rather than watching the podcast version, because you get to tell us in the chat where you're from, where you're watching the show. So very exciting news there. But yes, Matt, this is going to be a fantastic show, probably the best we've ever done. So that's really exciting. And we're looking forward to talking about training camp sleepers today, right? Training camp, it might seem like it's a long ways away. But the thing is, Adam already knows. Adam knows. I'm just saying. It's already the best show yet. He knows what's good. I was talking with T. Kraz, Tom Krasnicki from WDA. Ran into him yesterday at a whiskey tasting class at Total Wine up here in Wesley Chapel, and we were just talking about how you know how the time between Thanksgiving and Christmas, it's like 5 weeks, but it seems like it's like 2.5 or 3 weeks. It just flies by. For us, the Pewter reporters, this time between right now and the start of training camp flies by. It's like about 6 weeks, but it seems like 3 because time flies when you want to have vacation time. You want to like unwind a little bit, and it goes by fast. Like training camp will be here before you know it. I know Buck fans are super excited about that. We are too. But Matt, as you aptly covered on Thursday's show, this offseason's been the craziest offseason in Bucs history. I've done this for 27 years. There's never been an offseason crazier than this. Folks, if you missed Thursday's Pewter Report podcast, Matt and Bailey broke down the top 10 craziest moments of the offseason. Go back and watch that show. It's fantastic. You guys did a great job.
Thank you. Yeah, we went at like an hour and 15 minutes just because there was so much to get into, and each moment was so crazy for different reasons that each moment deserved the amount of time to really analyze. And we did a lot of like, where were you when this went on? And it's so funny, Scott, because this is kind of like, as reporters, this is sort of like our off season right now, just in terms of obviously when the season is going on, we're very busy with that. Then it's the draft coverage. Then it's, then it's free agency and the franchise tag and everything that goes on with that. Then it's the actual draft, and then it's OTAs and minicamp and everything else in between. So, we've already seen some of the big free agent signings, whether it was Russell Gage or even Akeem Hicks. It just happened so recently, but you kind of already had the big free agent signings. Right. You have, for the most part, there's still one more piece left to the puzzle, and that's Rob Gronkowski coming back. Outside of that, you pretty much have an idea of where the team stands going into training camp. And then training camp, it's whole other thing. But as we talked about, this offseason has seen so much craziness, and the chaos just keeps going. As soon as I close my laptop for a moment or put my phone away for 5 minutes, it seems like another deal is happening, or another retirement's going on, or there's a coaching change. Something is always going on. And Tompkins is on ESPN, I believe, right now. He's being a co-host on NFL Live. I can only imagine what he's going to say. Maybe he'll retire on the show. Maybe he'll say that he's signing with someone. You just never know what's going to happen. So many different things have gone on this offseason.
Agreed. Yeah. It's been nuts with the retirements, the unretirement. A lot of these guys coming back. So yeah, it's been crazy. There's no doubt.
Yeah, that's
Matt, you there?
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. You're frozen up on the screen, but
I am frozen. I didn't know if you were going to be able to hear me or not, because I got the little pinwheel going on my laptop.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That
Adam says
happens
Matt is frozen.
sometimes. We can hear you. We'll keep talking until the pinwheel stops. But yeah, technology is great when it works. Yeah, that's just how it is, not just for us, but for everybody out there in podcast land. I will say this. Uh, Today we're going to talk about offensive sleepers, training camp sleepers. I touched on some guys in Friday's SR's Fab Five column, and we'll talk about the defensive guys tomorrow. So the offensive guys today, and then the defensive guys tomorrow. Matt's got a couple of players on his list that he talked about, or he will talk about today, that are different from mine. And then we've got the defensive players that we'll talk about tomorrow. Again, 3 guys that I mentioned. And then, Matt, you're going to have some other guys to talk about tomorrow?
Yeah, that's right. A couple guys on offense and defense that I think have stood out a little bit in OTAs and training camp. And you mentioned a couple guys in your Fab Five, so they're not entirely different. Just a couple of players that I think you should keep your eye on in terms of might not necessarily make the 53-man roster. Some could, but others I think have a good shot at competing for a practice squad opportunity, which I think is still very important because we've seen the amount of times the Bucs have went to the practice squad to bring players up when injuries have occurred.
I'm sorry for laughing, Matt. We're getting some funny comments in the chat. And
no, I'm all for it.
I'm one of those.
We're in entertainment.
I'm one of those kids in the class that, like, when somebody said something funny, or like back in elementary school when some kid farted, like I would just crack up laughing. I mean, that's just me. So watching you frozen and then hear your voice, it's cracking me up. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to go to a Celsius commercial right now. I'm going to put up the Celsius frame. And when I do that, Matt, you're going to just pop off StreamYard and you're going to log right back in. That sound good?
Sounds like a plan.
Okay, here we go. So I'm going to talk about Celsius right now because I saw one of our cool readers talk about, here we go, football fan. I finally found the Arctic Blue Celsius flavor. Yes, Arctic Vibe is blue, and it's the newest Celsius flavor, and it's fantastic. And Tropical Vibe is one of my favorites. I had a Tropical Vibe Celsius today, and they also have Peach Vibe. So whether it's Peach Vibe, Celsius, Tropical Vibe, Arctic Vibe, tremendous flavors that are just packed with essential vitamins, and not just that, but the essential energy that you need to live fit, because that's what Celsius is. It's an energy drink. 7 essential vitamins, no preservatives or artificial flavors or colors, and it's the best tasting energy drink that you're going to find. And it's not just in these flavors, folks. Celsius has a ton of flavors. Everything from peach mango green tea to all the sparkling flavors, the orange, which is one of my favorites, wild berry, watermelon, sparkling kiwi guava. There's all sorts of tremendous flavors for Celsius. And what they're going to do is they're going to give you the energy that you need without the sugar crash. Why? Because there's 0 sugar. There's no preservatives or artificial flavors or colors in Celsius. So it's the best energy drink for you. It's also the one that's not going to give you the sugar crash, which is dynamite. So where can you find Celsius? Well, I'm going to tell you where. You can go to Celsius.com and you can click on the store locator. And you can also click on the banner ads, the Celsius banner ads on pewterreport.com. And what they're going to do is you can click on the store locator and put in your address. And then you're going to find out all these different locations of Celsius that is going to pop up around you. And you can go out there and grab a couple cans and try them. Or you can go to Amazon.com. That's what I do. I get the subscribe and save option. I save some money. They ship them right to my door. I never have to worry about Celsius running out of my house because they come right to the door and I save money. If you don't like the sweet flavors, and they're not overly sweet, people, they're really great flavors. But if you don't like the sweetness of some of the fruit flavors, I'm going to show you a couple cans here in a minute. I'm going to pop on here. This is the sparkling lime cucumber, and this is fantastic.
I'm not going to tell you that you can use this to mix drinks with, because Celsius does not want me to tell you that. But if you were to try it, you would probably like it. The other thing that is amazing about Celsius is the cola flavored. Folks, sometimes you might want something different than a fruit flavor. Well, the cola flavor is the answer. Matt's having some technical difficulties getting back on, so I'm going to go solo here for a few minutes until he jumps back aboard. But Celsius, it's the truth, people. It really is. Highly recommend it. They're the title sponsor of the Pewter Report podcast, and so we greatly appreciate Celsius supporting us, and we hope that you support them. So let's pop into a couple of questions here. Germ Deasy, go Bucs. I've never been more excited for a season ever. Yes, this is going to be an exciting season, folks. I mean, if you thought 2021 was exciting with the prospects for a repeat, that's one thing. If you thought 2020 with Tom Brady's arrival and year 2 of Bruce Arians was exciting, I've got another thing to tell you, folks. The 2022 season is pretty darn exciting, because it's Todd Bowles. We're going to have a little bit of a different twist on the head coaching job here in Tampa Bay with a defensive-minded head coach. So that's certainly one thing right there. And also, too, I'm curious to see what Tom Brady can do to have an even better season, right? I mean, you're talking about the GOAT here. He had one of the greatest seasons of all time, over 5,300 yards, set a Buccaneer single season record for passing yards. Also was, I think, the third highest single season passing year in NFL history. And I mean, that's incredible numbers for Tom Brady. What can he do to top that? Can he top that? I would not put it past Tom to certainly have a better year. At the end of the day, though, what matters is the wins. Can they top 13 wins? Can they beat their 13-4 record from a year ago? I'm going to tell you right now, that might be a tall order. This year's schedule is brutal. It's tougher than it was last year in terms of the opponents they're going to face. Now, sometimes you can't rely on what happened last year, right? Nobody saw the Bengals going to the Super Bowl, especially in Joe Burrow's second season. So there's always going to be some surprises. But I'll say this. I wouldn't be surprised if there was, if there was a better Buccaneer team this year, but maybe not 13 wins. Maybe it's 12 wins. Maybe it's 11 wins. Keep in mind, the Buccaneers won the Super Bowl going 11-5 in 2020. It's not what you do in the regular season, as we found out last year. It's what you do in the postseason. It's getting to the postseason that matters. And it also means home field advantage. That's important. The Buccaneers had a chance at that last year, but unfortunately lost to the Rams. So that's not the end all be all either. But we'll see. I'm excited about this season. I think that this is a unique season that's on deck. It could be Tom Brady's last, probably will be. The good thing is this is not Matt Matera's last podcast. He's back on. He's joining us again. So we were just talking about some of these comments here. And we've got Jim Stenman. Celsius is even found here in Arctic Finland. That's awesome that you can find Celsius internationally, because in about 5 minutes, we're going to find out exactly. And I get a funny feeling Jim's going to say he's listening and watching in Finland. But we're going to find out exactly where you Pewter people are watching today's show from. And we're going to do a roll call in about 5 minutes. So getting to a couple more statements, questions, comments here from Chris Wolfinger. This is the first season since Brady came to the Bucs. I'm looking forward to watching the defense more than the offense. That's my man, Chris. There we go.
I respect it. Scott, you probably didn't see this because you were hosting the show while I was trying to get my laptop together. But as I mentioned before I started freezing up, that Tompkins was on NFL Live.
Mm-hmm.
Adam Schefter just tweeted a couple minutes ago. He said, and Tompkins on NFL Live, he said, it looks like the Bucs are out of the picture, but Sue did say he would like to continue playing. Not the most shocking of news, but nonetheless, Tompkins does essentially confirm that he's not going to be with the Bucs this season. But as we just talked about, a very exciting year for the defense in general. I don't know necessarily what I'm most excited about, but the first thing that popped in my head is just the duo of Vita Vea, Akeem Hicks, and Logan Hall to see what they can do together as a unit for the first time working together.
Yeah.
All three of them. I think the defensive line is going to be a big bounce back for them. There's a lot of bouncing back to do in terms of the entire defense, whether it's, the defensive line and the outside linebackers getting to the quarterback more, Joe Tryon-Shoyinka wrapping up the quarterback a couple more times than he did last year.
Yes.
Devon White, I think we've analyzed that a lot, where, yes, he was a Pro Bowl player, but maybe didn't necessarily live up to our expectations of what we wanted from him. Less bull in a china shop, more cerebral out there as a linebacker. And, of course, the secondary with players in contract years. Sean Murphy-Bunting, can he hold down the nickel corner position? A lot of retribution for defensive players this year across the board on defense.
Yeah. Can Jamel Dean get more interceptions? Can Carlton Davis get more interceptions, right? I think both those guys want more picks. It helps the team. It helps their own causes, though, right? Carlton Davis has got the money. I think now he wants the respect from the league, and you get that by going to the Pro Bowl. Whether it's a farce or not, whether it matters or not, it matters to the players. It matters to agents because a lot of times they have incentive bonuses tied into whether they make the Pro Bowl. So we can sit there and laugh at the Pro Bowl. We can scoff at it. We can ridicule it, say it's not worth a damn, but it still does mean something. It means something to players. The more Pro Bowls you get, that helps your Hall of Fame resume. And, who knows if Carlton Davis ends up getting to that status or not, but it starts with one Pro Bowl, right? And then you kind of stack from there. So if Carlton Davis, if he can hang on to some of those interceptions he dropped, he probably should have had 5 picks in half a season last year. If he could come away with that, 5 or 6 interceptions, that's going to help build his resume. Jamel Dean, if he gets 5 or 6 interceptions, he's going to get a huge contract from that, either from the Buccaneers or somebody else in free agency. So those two guys really want to get more picks. The other guy that we'll mention in that contract year in a defensive backfield, Mike Edwards. Can he be the true starting strong safety and take as many reps at the position as Jordan Whitehead did? Or is this going to be a situation where he loses that job to newcomer Keanu Neal? Or are they going to split it? And if they're going to split the reps, is it 50-50? Is it 80-20? Is it 20-80 going in another different direction? So a lot's on the line for a lot of the players on defense this year. And I agree, man. I'm just as excited about the Buccaneer defense as I am the offense, because this does need to be a little bit of a bounce back year, especially when you essentially lose that game on the defensive side against the Rams with that 44-yard dagger from Matthew Stafford to Cooper Kupp.
Yeah, I think we want to see the defense. We know what we're going to get from the offense and Tom Brady. And sure, it's exciting to see, how will it work with Russell Gage and how will it work with Rachaad White as receiving running back? But outside of that, I think we can kind of pencil in the Bucs to score the magic 30 number again, or 29.9. You mentioned Edwards. I think without question, Mike Edwards is the player that I'm most looking forward to watching this year because of everything you said. We know we can get the interceptions, but can he play a full rep of an entire game of defensive snaps, not just coming in when it's convenient? Should mention right now, we're starting roll call at 4:20.
Oh, call.
Let us know where you're at, Pewter people, and I will finish my point about just the defense in general. I think Mike Edwards, and this goes for Sean Murphy-Bunting, where, and we talked about this before, but it deserves importance in repeating. They will be the starters to begin training camp. I don't even want to pencil them in for the start of the regular season when they go and play the Dallas Cowboys on Sunday Night Football. Should be a very exciting game, by the way. Odds are already out for that game. You should check it out. But these guys, while having their starting position when training camp gets going in a couple of weeks, as you mentioned, you have Keanu Neal, who could easily take over the starting safety spot if there's issues with Mike Edwards, if he can't handle an entire rep, or maybe he just struggles in the run game. And we all know the presence that Jordan Whitehead was up in the box, stopping the run. I don't think we gave him enough credit for what he did in the passing game, but
that's right.
I'm not saying Edwards has to repeat what Jordan Whitehead did, but you still have to show that you can at least be trusted and relied upon there. Sean Murphy-Bunting, if there's anyone that I think is going to who's going to be the quickest to lose their starting job, unfortunately, I think it could be SMB. I really enjoyed watching Logan Ryan when he participated in OTAs and Bucs minicamp. I think we already saw just a little bit, a brief snippet of what Todd Bowles wants to do with Logan Ryan, whether it's putting him in the slot, whether it's blitzing him off the corner. I think Ryan, it was so cool just hearing him talk about other players that he looks up to. And obviously Rondae Barber was a huge influence on him. Yeah. And I think he said one of the most fascinating things with Rondae Barber, outside of all the accolades that we talked about on the Bucs all-time Mount Rushmore, is just the fact that Rondae was able to stay healthy. Scott, I think you said the stat last week where Rondae Barber didn't miss a game for 13 seasons in a row, like to end his career. And Logan Ryan talked about the fact that he does more long distance running, and he thinks that that's really helped with his stamina out there, especially going to play in this heat in Tampa, Florida, come training camp. So I really think Ryan is going to solidify himself as maybe not necessarily a starter, but a guy that's really going to go out there and be a presence for this Bucs defense and make plays, whether it's a big PBU, whether it's, just making a stop at the line of scrimmage or coming down with an interception. I think that veteran presence where, we saw it with Richard Sherman when he came in last year, but for the most part, the secondary's just been a young group, and they've been learning together, and it's been a lot of fun. There's been a lot of highs.
Time for them to grow up now, man. You got guys coming into the contract years and all that. So, that's definitely the situation. Appreciate everybody for participating in Roll Call. We'll do it again next Monday at 4:20. Awesome to see everybody from not just Florida, but from around the country and around the world. So you guys well represented the Buccaneer fan base here. So we greatly appreciate that. As Rich reminds us, and we appreciate that, make sure you are subscribing to our Pewter Report TV channel. That's our YouTube channel, Pewter Report TV. Hit the like button on our videos. What that does, that helps build our following, because that little sidebar on YouTube where it suggests videos for you to watch, what that does is the more likes we have, the more often we appear there when it comes to Buccaneer content. And that helps us find other cool Pewter people like you. So you guys can help us grow, and you already have, by hitting those like buttons, those thumbs up buttons on this video here, on the one that you're watching right now, and every Pewter Report video we do, from the snippets of press conferences and interviews, and even snippets of the Pewter Report podcast shows that Matt puts up, to the actual Pewter Report podcast themselves. So make sure you're going to all of our videos, hitting the like button, and subscribing. We're almost at 8,600, and our goal is to be at 9,000 by the start of the season. So that's where we want to be, 9,000 by the start of the season. We want to be at 10,000 subscribers by the end of the year. Help us make it happen. Help us grow, Pewter people. We appreciate you.
Please do. And like Scott said, just thank you to everyone that watches the show and gives their input and chats and comments and tweeting at us and everything. It's awesome to get everyone involved, and we couldn't do it without you guys.
We love you guys. Absolutely.
And thank you, everyone that does super chats. If you super chat us, we will make sure that we get to your question and answer it almost right away. And we got one from Trustin here. He says, off topic, any chance of bringing in Gerald McCoy again as another defensive lineman in this rotation? And would he accept the role compared to his old role? Scott, I'll let you start with this one, because you've had a little more experience with Gerald.
The thing with McCoy is, and the biggest reason why Jason Light wanted to make that switch and cut Gerald McCoy and bring in Ndamukong Suh was the fact that Suh never got hurt. The guy was an absolute Iron Man, very much like how you were talking about Rondae Barber just a second ago. The greatest ability is availability, right? And you look at Gerald McCoy, boy, the Bucs got rid of him kind of at the right time. He went to Carolina. I don't think he played an entire season. Maybe he did. I think he missed a couple of games. But then the next year, right, he signs with Dallas, gets I think it was a quad injury, and missed the entire season. Then he comes back, signs with the Raiders last year, gets hurt in, I believe, the season opener, and hurt his knee, and he was out for the year. So McCoy is in his mid-30s right now. I'm going to say 34, 35. And his body's is just not holding up. You see that with Jason Pierre-Paul. You see it with players, man. It just, at some point in time, when you have all that mileage on your tires, you get some blowouts. And I think that's what's happening now to Gerald McCoy. And so I think with experienced players that have a serious injury history, and when you miss 2 consecutive seasons like McCoy has, even for the league minimum, teams would rather give a younger guy a chance, a younger guy with more upside, more potential, more promise, a chance than signing an old guy that you just don't trust their body. And so I think Gerald McCoy is done. I know he's not coming back to Tampa, but I don't think that he's going to get signed elsewhere unless it's in like an emergency fashion. And if he can come in and pass a physical, maybe a team gives him,
Right.
a mid-season look. But
I saw McCoy was on, it was either NFL Network or he was on a football show on TV recently. So
he does a great job on TV, Matt. Like I watched
him
too. He's good. That's his lane right there right now.
So that's what I was going to say. Is like, I'm not speaking for Gerald McCoy, but it seems like he's got his eyes set on what he's going to do next, which is be an analyst in the NFL, which I think would be awesome and great for him. It does seem like he has 1 foot in the door, 1 foot out the door, kind of like Richard Sherman as well, where he's going to Amazon. And sure, if a team wants to sign him, he'll go and play there, but he's got his other plans going. And it's different. It's different with McCoy coming back to a team and then, okay, he's going to accept the role as a rotational guy. It's different than bringing in a veteran such as Steve McClendon, which the Bucs did 2 seasons ago, and he's on the team last year, where McClendon is used to that rotational nose tackle, interior defensive lineman role. He's only going to get a number of snaps. He's got to stop the run. That's his job. And he does it to his best ability and did it, effectively. He had an impact for the Bucs, where McCoy, all he's really known is being the guy at defensive tackle and defensive lineman. Even in Carolina, he lined up there most of the time. I don't know if that would necessarily be the best fit coming here to the Bucs. And as you said, just going younger in general just seems like the right move.
It's so tough sometimes when you're used to being the guy to not having that role, right? And sometimes, and listen, Gerald's a guy, he likes helping younger players. And there's nothing wrong with that per se. But at the same time, sometimes the coaches want to coach and they want the players to come in and just, help out, right? But not be an alpha, right? And I think that's why JPP is not going to get re-signed as well, because it's JPP wants to play. They want to play Joe Tryon-Shoyinka. Obviously, they drafted him in the first round for a reason. Shaq Barrett's going to be the other starter. It's not a great dynamic to have a guy that has an alpha personality sitting on the bench and playing a handful of snaps per game. So that's why it's not going to happen.
I agree. Shout out to Tom with this comment here. What about bringing Sapp and Rice? Just kidding.
Yeah.
I will say, last year Simeon Rice came to training camp and he met with Joe Tryon-Shoyinka after introduced himself. They had a little conversation.
Yeah.
And everyone was saying Simeon Rice looks like that he could still put on the pads and line up for like 15 snaps in a game. It was truly incredible.
Matt, I'm telling you, in my 3 decades of covering this team, just about 3 decades, Simeon Rice was and still is the best athlete I've ever covered.
Yeah.
I would watch this guy do 2, back in the Gruden days, they had 2-a-day practices, one in the morning and then one in the blazing heat out there in training camp in Orlando at the Celebration, at Disney Wide World of Sports. Oh my gosh, it was brutally hot. There's no wind over there. It's not like Tampa where you get the trade winds, from the Gulf. You're in the middle of the state. There's no wind. And he would do his second 2-hour practice, and then he would be doing sprints after practice, like they did some after practice conditioning. And I mean, you see guys, jogging, right? They take their pads off and they're jogging, doing 53 yards across the field. And Rice was just bouncing like a gazelle, just striding. He looked like he could practice for 2 more hours. I've never seen an athlete like that. I've talked to Sapp, Lynch, I mean, his counterparts. Mm-hmm. And they all said he's just the best athlete they've ever played with. I mean, and Sapp is a tremendous athlete for his body type and his position, et cetera. Derek Brooks, one of the fastest linebackers in his prime. I mean, Simeon Rice, there's nobody close. He's just that amazing. So That's my take on it. One question here, and then we're going to get into today's topic. Jim wants to know, who is the most exciting wide receiver outside the top three in your mind? So obviously the top three being Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, and Russell Gage. So out of the reserve receivers, who's the most exciting in your mind? I think I know yours, Matt, so I'll let you say it.
I'm actually torn between two guys. I wanted to go with Scotty. Well, Cyril Grayson, he's up there because it's all about what have you done for me lately. And the last we saw Cyril Grayson, he was scoring game-winning touchdowns for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He's taken the biggest stride, and you talk about perseverance. I think Cyril Grayson Jr. is the definition of that. I'm excited about him, and I said I wasn't going to get too pumped up about this guy, but I can't help it. I think Jalen Darden, if he can improve with putting the pads and the helmets on, if he could really improve in training camp, which he checked that box off last year in terms of OTAs and minicamp. It didn't totally translate over into into training camp.
Right.
This year, once again, he checked that box. I would say he even took it a step further, just degree of difficulty of catches that he was making, getting even more open down the field. And I know the Bucs didn't connect on that, but once again, I think with time, they will start connecting on those. So I'm going to go with Jalen Darden.
Okay.
Can he take that next step in a full all-out training camp, getting more reps than Tom Brady than he probably did last year? We've seen him improve. It's time to improve a little bit more.
We catch a lot of crap because we sit there and we sell everybody on Jalen Darden like we did last year. Folks, all we're doing is we're taking a snapshot. We're taking a picture of this is what's happening in the minicamp. This is what's happening in OTAs. This is what's happening in training camp. We're taking pictures. Those pictures, they change, right?
Yeah.
They can change, good or bad. And so all we're doing is saying right now, Jalen Darden looks good. We said it last offseason. We weren't trying to pump anybody up or sell anybody on a notion. That we're just stating a fact. And then when the pads came on, and I wrote about this in Friday's SR's Fab Five, and Jalen even admitted it. His head started swimming, right? Because now all of a sudden it's live bullets. You've got helmets and shoulder pads on, and all of a sudden he was unsure about some of the routes he was running, and he was rounding some routes off, wasn't running them crisply. And remember, he got yelled at quite a bit by Bruce Arians for his route running. And so that was an instance where he didn't know the playbook well enough. And that's okay, because he was a rookie last year. Rookies are not going to come in day one, absorb the entire playbook. Also, too, and I'm not saying he has a learning disability per se, but certain players learn differently. Now, I talked to Peyton Barber, former Bucs running back. He did have a learning disability. He was dyslexic. So, he couldn't.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, he really couldn't read, and he was also ADHD. So he couldn't really read and absorb the playbook as it stood. Conceptually, he could look at the drawings and understand that. But for him, he actually had to be out there on the field doing the reps, right? Knowing which hole to hit on this particular play and kind of making his brain work that way. O.J. Howard was another player that really needed the reps. He actually had to physically do it and run the reps. And Kevin Garver said with Jalen Darden, hey, some guys can listen to it in the classroom and pick it up, no problem. Some people can look at the actual play, see the little stick, route, and visually see it and go out there in the field and do it. Jalen is like O.J. Howard, where he actually has to physically run the route, right? And if it's 5 yards and break here, 7 yards and break there, come back, curl, whatever the route is, he's got to actually do it. And so where he's limited in that instance is he gets held back because you only get so many reps, right?
Yeah.
And so if he's not getting the reps, he's not learning as fast or as rapidly as somebody who looks at the card, looks at the play sheet and says, okay, this is the route in this play. So they got it once there. Then that player actually goes out and runs that route, and then they get it twice. For Jalen, he's not getting it once and twice. He's getting it once only when he sees it and does it on the field. So I think that's what slowed his development down a little bit, and he admitted that. And the article, Kevin Garber said that. And so now it's year 2. He's gotten more reps. And, we didn't see Jarrett Stearns out there. We didn't see Scotty Miller out there for the last part of OTAs, Matt, and for the mini camp. And with those 2 receivers out, plus Russell Gage out, plus Chris Godwin out, that's 4 receivers out of the 13 out. That's more reps for Jalen Darden, right? Maybe 10 more reps per practice, maybe 12. And that's just 10 or 12 more reps to accelerate his development. But he looks faster this year because he knows the plays. There are more choice routes and option routes in the Bucs offense that there wasn't in the North Texas Mean Green playbook. And he didn't huddle in college. Now he's huddling. And so there's a lot to it from a guy making a jump from North Texas to the NFL. And we'll see if he can put it all together. We're not making excuses for the kid. These are reasons. But at the end of the day, he's got to put it all together and do it.
Yeah, listen, I mean, when Leonard Fournette came into Bucs minicamp and he looked overweight, we said that he looked overweight. Same with Vita Vea. So we call it how we see it, whether a player's doing really well or, if they're underperforming. And Jalen Darden, as you said, and you had a great section of the SR's Fab 5 where, as you just spoke about, everyone, I just put it in the chat there. So make sure you check it out. Goes in depth on Jalen Darden and just what to see from him next year, this season coming up, and where he may have struggled and where he's going to take the next step. So, as you said, it's all about, with all those guys out, Darden had to, by choice, they had no one else to go to. He had to go in and get those reps. But it's what you do with those opportunities. And I think he, for a majority of it, made the most of those opportunities. I really wanted to pick Scotty Miller. I really did. But he wasn't healthy for Bucs mandatory minicamp.
Yeah.
He wasn't there for minicamp. I don't know what his status is going to be for training camp. I would like to imagine guys like him and Stearns are going to be healthy enough where they can play in training camp, because if they're not getting reps in, you can almost pencil in Darden as at least in the top 5 of receivers. We'll see what's going on with Tyler Johnson. Tyler Johnson I find so fascinating because he'll go through periods of he's almost invisible,
and then he just disappears.
And then he balls out. So I'd like to see a little bit more of consistency from from Tyler Johnson.
Yeah.
And I just mentioned Scotty Miller and obviously Jalen Darden coming from North Texas, not the biggest program. Guys that are kind of underdogs going into this season. Yeah. And the best place, if you want to play, fantasy football and fantasy sports, the best place to go and do that is with Underdog Fantasy and their $10 million in prizes in Best Ball Mania. Guys, if you don't know about Underdog Fantasy, as I said, it's the best place for fantasy football this summer. Their Best Ball Mania 3 tournament has $10 million in prize money. And the best part is you just draft your fantasy football team, and that's it. There's no waivers, no trades, no in-season management. And Underdog Fantasy gives you your best score each week of the season, and the highest scores at the end of the year win. So you don't got to worry about your opponent when there's a bye week. And the champion of Best Ball Mania last year, actually just recently, coming up on the 1-year anniversary of when the champion of last year's Best Ball Mania won $2 million in prizes. They drafted right around this time. So the earlier that you draft, the better. Plus, Underdog Fantasy is going to double your first deposit up to $100 when you sign up with the promo code Pewter. That's 4 free entries into Best Ball Mania. So what are you waiting for? Head to UnderdogFantasy.com or the App Store and sign up for Underdog with the promo code Pewter. Draft your Best Ball Mania 3 team today. That's Underdog Fantasy, promo code Pewter, and get yourself a squad. Win that money. $10 million. Everyone can use it.
Yeah. Tonight, I'm going to be going to Underdog Fantasy and doing my pick'em on the Lightning. I've yet to win, but I'm addicted to it. It's really fun. It's easy. You get to pick at least 2 players. You have to pick one from one team, one from the other. And I'm going to probably pick 2 or 3 Lightning players and then one for the Avalanche. And if there's multipliers. So if you pick 4 players, if I bet $10, I have a chance to win, I think $100, $200, whatever it is. So I'm going to try again. It's a fun little pick'em game that you can do for not just NHL but baseball too, and then football in season as well. So a lot of cool stuff on Underdog Fantasy. So let's get into our topic for the show today, which is training camp sleepers. Mm-hmm. I think this guy right here, right? That's Devin Tompkins from Utah State. This is a kid that I think more people were probably more excited about Jareth Stearns from Western Kentucky. And I think he's one of the guys that you have on your list, Matt. Jareth Stearns, 150 catches, right, for almost 2,000 yards. I think 17 touchdowns at Western Kentucky last year. Was catching all those passes from Bailey Zappi, who was, I think he set the single season FBS passing record. Just a phenomenal single season for both Zappi and Stearns. Mm-hmm. But the second guy, this guy right here from Utah State, Devin Tompkins, he is a jet, man. This guy runs a 4.35, might be the fastest Buccaneer, certainly the fastest Buccaneer receiver. Maybe Cyril Grayson is in that mix as well. But you look at Scotty Miller, 4.41. You look at Jalen Darden, 4.46. This guy just has a top-end speed, an electric speed that when Todd Bowles was asked, who are you looking forward to seeing the most in training camp? This was the guy he picked. He wants to see little Devin Tompkins at 5'7", 167 pounds. He wants to see him with pads on, Matt.
Yeah, Scott, let's actually play that video.
I mean, he's quick. We know he's quick. He's fast. He can get off the ball quick. Again, the false start penalty negated a lot of things he had, but, he's the guy we're looking at, interested to see in training camp.
A couple of guys. He did really well today. He did his thing. All these young guys, they come in and they give me extra motivation because they just got so much juice and just they want to play. It's their dream. They want to make it. And just watching them work, it inspires me. So they've been doing great, and I hope I can help them along the way.
What about Jareth Stearns?
Scott, so Tompkins has been receiving praise left and right from coaches and players, as you saw from Todd Bowles there, along with star wide receiver Mike Evans. But Todd Bowles not only spoke about Devin Tompkins in that press conference, the next day he was asked about, who he wants to see in training camp, who are some of the, unsung guys that he really wants to keep an eye on when training camp gets here. He went out of his way twice to mention Devin Tompkins. They were similar questions, but nonetheless, he gave the same answer 2 times. So I think it's more than just the speed and the skill set that he has on the field. He's already catching the attention of coaches and players. Mike Evans was very supportive of him, as he was of a lot of the other receivers. But again, Mike Evans is obviously a great guy, but
there's no BS with him.
He's not just going to say a player's a good player just for the heck of it.
Interesting to note too, Todd Bowles, defensive-minded coach, said twice an offensive player, an undrafted rookie free agent, right? I mean, that's saying something. So he's on the list for those reasons. Stearns was the FBS leader in catches and touchdowns last year, receiving touchdowns and yards. And Tompkins was second behind Stearns. So the Buccaneers not only signed the top FBS receiver last year, they signed the second best guy too in Tompkins. Now, the thing with Stearns, let's talk about him too.
Sure.
I'm excited about him. At the rookie minicamp, this guy just got open effortlessly. There's just something about him. He almost had like a force field around him, right, Matt, where he just got open, and then he had a tractor beam where he didn't drop the ball either. So the force field, the tractor beam, there was something special about this kid. Unfortunately, he suffered, I think, a soft tissue injury. Like Scotty Miller, was not a participant in the last week of OTAs, I believe. Yeah. And then was not in there for the mandatory minicamp. So it gave Tompkins a little bit more of a spotlight to shine, but we'll see Stearns during training camp plenty.
Yeah, Scott. So I think Tompkins was the best receiver in minicamp, but again, Scotty Miller wasn't practicing and Stearns wasn't practicing. When OTAs was going on and Stearns was available, and this is just my opinion, I felt that he was the best receiver that was out there. Yeah. The catches in traffic, I think, were great. And Tompkins excelled in that too. But it really stood out to me with Stearns, and he's even a smaller guy, I believe, or they're right around the same size.
He's 5'7.5", maybe 5'8". So in terms of the size, the height, they're about the same. But Stearns is a little thicker. He's a little bit more put together. About 190 pounds.
Back too. The way that he could just get open, and he was making catches down the field. He's making catches across the middle, and he's a small player.
Yeah,
but he plays like a big man. Like his verticals are off the charts. He can get up high and make some plays, and I think that's what's really exciting. I could see him as like as a kick returner. Yeah, so I think there's a role for him on this team.
Right, and both Tompkins and Stearns were in that mix along with Jalen Darden doing the returns. Right, so that when we saw punt and kick return, those were the guys in the mix there. So we're going to see which one of those three little receivers, Darden, Stearns, or Tompkins, ends up winning a roster spot and maybe that return specialist.
Scott, one last thing on Tompkins for everyone watching and listening. Go back and listen to our interview again with Cyril Grayson Jr. because we asked him about guys that stood out, and he mentioned Tompkins by name. But what he was really impressed with Tompkins was that this guy carries a notebook everywhere. He's asking really intent questions, in the in the room, in the wide receiver room, when they're all gathered there. So Tompkins is obviously doing it on the field, but he's putting in all the preparation behind the scenes. So I thought that was important to point out that, the veteran guys, I know Cyril Grayson is still a younger guy in his NFL resume, but if Cyril Grayson Jr. is noticing it, I bet the coaches are, and I bet the stars like Mike Evans and Chris Godwin are seeing it too. So kudos to him for getting it done in the classroom.
So Tompkins was one of my guys. Stearns is one of yours. Let's stay with the wide receiver position and get another one of your training camp sleepers. This guy right here, Kalyn Geiger, right? Again, another small guy out of Texas Tech, about 5'8", about 170, 180 pounds. Really small guy. But again, without Scotty Miller, without Jareth Stearns, without Chris Godwin and Russell Gage, this is a guy like Devin Tompkins that made the most of those extra reps and had a nice end around, right? And
he made
a nice wide receiver screen, caught some nice passes.
He had a catch in the end zone for a touchdown where he had to adjust on the ball. It wasn't like a total spin, but it was just a really nice athletic play. And I think Geiger gets lost a little bit in the shuffle just in terms of Tompkins really stood out, and I think we were pretty high on Stearns. So as far as the undrafted wide receivers go, he might be the least noticeable out of the three. And, even his college stats don't really, fascinate you that much.
Well, listen, as a Big 12 guy, I can tell you Texas Tech, they have not had a good quarterback probably since Patrick Mahomes.
So he played 2 years at Troy, had 873 yards and 5 touchdowns his first year at Troy, 752 and 3 touchdowns his second year at Troy. And then he went over to Texas Tech, his 1 year there, 43 receptions for 533 yards, and only reached the end zone one time. So he also had 12 rushing attempts for 98 yards, that average 8.2 yards. So, not the worst stats of all time, but definitely not something that you're going to use necessarily in an argument of like why this guy should make your team or not. But you know what? The stats are one thing. Just watching him on the field, in these practices, I just see a guy, one, that's very confident because he was screaming after he scored that touchdown.
I know.
So no one in particular, but, he was going wild for making a good play, as he should. I think people should celebrate when they make a good play on the field. But just watching him, he looks like a very smooth runner. I didn't see too many drop issues with him. He just looked comfortable in what he was doing. We talked about Rachaad White as a smooth type of guy. I would put Geiger in that category a little bit as well. So I just think he's a player that I don't know if he's going to make the 53-man roster, but I think he's got a great opportunity to make the practice squad. And most importantly, he's going to push some of the other guys, whether it's Scotty and Jalen. He's going to push these guys to really earn their spot on the team. He just makes for great competition. I don't view this as just, okay, well, we need to fill out the entire list of players for training camp. Let's just give him a jersey and he'll play for 2 weeks. I think he's legit going to make some noise.
Yeah.
Might not make the team, but I think he's going to really, really up the ante for everyone else in that receiver room because there's a lot of players. We've talked about that.
13
yeah,
receivers on his team.
There's a lot of guys.
And there's a reason why there's 13 because all of these guys look like they can play, if not on an NFL roster right now, on a practice squad. And if you stick on the practice squad long enough and you develop, you might turn into the next Cyril Grayson. Speaking of practice squad, Cody Mcilroy has been Mr. Practice Squad at the tight end position. He's 29 years old. He's hoping he is the next Cyril Grayson because Grayson's about that age too. And like Grayson, who was a track star at LSU, didn't play football at all. But the thing is when you look at Cody Mcilroy, he was a baseball player in college. He was a basketball player, and then walked on as a tight end at Southeastern Oklahoma, not Oklahoma or Oklahoma State, Southeastern Oklahoma, and he caught a handful of touchdowns. You know, he's a big, tall drink of water, 6'6", 255 pounds. He fits what the Bucs like in terms of their athletic profile at tight end. He's a good athlete, played and starred in multiple sports in college, but just has not been able to put it all together. But they liked him better than Tanner Hudson. You know, Hudson actually made the roster for a couple games, Matt, but it just got to the point where Hudson wouldn't block, right?
Yeah. He was never known as a blocking tight end. That's actually something that Bruce Arians really got on his case. He's like, he's a great receiver. We just need him to block. We all remember the greatest preseason duo of all time is Ryan Griffin and Tanner Hudson.
That's right.
But still wasn't enough to really get him on the team.
Correct. And Cody Mcilroy was a better blocker, and he could catch the ball on occasion. Not all the time, but on occasion. Matter of fact, Cody Mcilroy only has one career catch. It was back in 2019. A 30-yard catch. I remember, almost scored. I think against the Falcons.
It was against the Texans. I remember it vividly. Yes. Yep. And he was parked at like the 1 yard. I think he was in the end zone, but if I recall, Jameis kind of had to scramble a little bit. Yeah. And he got the pass going, and McElroy had to run forward a little bit, make the catch, but stay in bounds at the same time. It was a very, very nice play.
For a good catch. Yeah. That's his 30 yards. Catch. Yeah. That's his lone catch. He was active for a couple games last year when there were some injuries at the tight end position. Was targeted once, didn't come down with it. But this is going to be a really, really big preseason for Cody Mcilroy. You look at the numbers, right? They're stacked against him, especially when Gronk comes back, because you have Gronk and Cameron Brate as the two veterans. Then they just drafted a pair of tight ends in Cade Otton, who will be on this roster, right? Unless he's on injured reserve. Yeah. But he's supposed to come back from that ankle surgery and be ready for training camp. Will probably start off as tight end number 3. Kieft, the 6th-round pick, probably gets that 4th spot unless Cody Mcilroy just puts it all together. And then they say, okay, as a 6th-round pick, maybe we can sneak Kieft on to the practice squad. But this is it. As I wrote about in the Fab 5, it's now or never for Cody Mcilroy. He has been on the team since 2019, mostly in a practice squad fashion. This is the time. Like Cyril Grayson at the end of last year, made the most of his opportunities. It's time. It's time for Cody Mcilroy to put it all together, or I think he's going to go by the way of the Tanner Hudson.
I find McElroy a very interesting player in general because he's got the great size, and I like him as a inline type of receiving tight end. And we just talked about that he's a better blocker than Tanner Hudson. Yeah. While that may be true, I don't necessarily think he's a great blocker in general. He's not a very physical guy when he's not. No, he has all the makings of he should be a very physical person. And I think he's a good receiver in itself. But again, that physicality came back to hurt him. I remember one of D. Delaney's interceptions in OTAs came from, it was essentially a jump ball between D. Delaney and Cody Mcilroy. And it's like,
D. Delaney's 5'11".
Use your size, Cody Mcilroy. Come on, make that
box
play.
Out, man.
But then
don't make Blaine Gabbert look bad, damn it.
Exactly. That's the worst part of all of it. You made Blaine look bad. But then, to Cody McIlroy's credit, he did make a nice jumping, leaping touchdown in Bucs minicamp in a goal line red zone situation. So they need more
Blaine
of that.
Gabbert?
Yeah. But
making up for that horrible play.
He's so big, and he doesn't play with the size that he should. We talked about Stearns playing like a big wide receiver.
He does.
I don't see that at all from Cody Mcilroy.
Right. Remember Steve Smith, Panthers,
yes,
Washington team.
Yes,
he played bigger than his size, right? And I think Stearns, I agree with you. He plays bigger than his size. McIlroy plays like he's 6'2", 6'3", and he's 6'6". So crazy. Obligatory Blaine Gabbert photo to get you all through your Monday.
Hey, congrats to Blaine Gabbert. Him and his wife, they just had a baby girl recently.
Oh, outstanding.
Yeah, I think over the weekend. So
that's fantastic.
Congrats to Blaine Gabbert.
Yes, congrats to Blaine Gabbert. It's always a better planet Earth when there's more Gabberts on it. So
agreed.
That's fantastic. Rounding out my third choice for the Bucs potential training camp sleepers is this guy right here. And most Buc fans are like, who is that? Yeah. That is Sedarius Hutcherson. He was an undrafted free agent out of South Carolina last year, played left tackle, and he is 6'3", 321 pounds, very well put together. Big, physical, nasty dude who had a pretty good training camp last year. His run blocking is way ahead of his pass protection. And he got hurt in the preseason. He is playing left guard. Not sure if it was this game or if it was the Texans game. Interesting that was the game. If you look to his left, so that's Hutcherson playing left guard. Nick Leverett was playing left tackle in that game. And Nick Leverett's smaller than Hutcherson, who played left tackle in college, I believe, at South Carolina. So Hutcherson gets hurt, tears his ACL. He's out. Has not even been cleared to practice yet. He was out there doing individual workouts during the OTAs and minicamp. He's expected to be good to go for training camp. He's the forgotten man in the battle royale at the left guard position, Matt. You've got in this corner, Luke Gedeke. In that corner, you got Aaron Stinnie, the veteran. And then over here, you got Robert Hainsey, the second-year interior lineman. And over there, you've got John Mulchin. Who else is in the mix? Who am I forgetting? Nick Leverett. He's played center. He's played left tackle. He'll play left guard. I mean, do you throw in Hutcherson too? Who else am I missing, Matt? They've got like 4 or 5 other guys playing guard or trying to play guard.
Yeah, I know. Did you mention Hainsey? I know JC was in the. I know Hainsey, JC was in the chat mentioning.
There's
Hainsey.
like 6 players in this battle royale for left guard. It's probably going to come down to either Gedeke, the second round pick, or Stinnie, the veteran. I think that the Hainsey, the former 4th round pick, he's a long shot. Don't count him out. Yeah. Nick Leverett, don't count him out either. So Hutcherson, is he a long shot to make this roster? Yes, he is. But man, you were over there and you saw some of the one-on-one reps that Hutcherson had in pass pro. When he gets his hands on you, he literally knocked defensive tackles down. Like pancake them in one-on-ones. That doesn't happen. Now, when those hands miss, it's ugly. Okay. When he misses, it's bad. But when he gets those massive hands on you, like good night, it's over. Like, enter Sandman, right? And so I'm just curious to see, because in the run game, this guy is fantastic. In certain pass protections, when he was effective, he was good. Can he come back from this injury? He's got a lot of catching up to do. He might be a long shot to make this roster, even as a backup. But he has got the physical tools, Matt, that excite me. And obviously that they've excited this football team.
One of my favorite things in training camp is the first couple of times that we get, just straight up 1-versus-1.
Yeah.
Outside linebacker versus offensive tackle, or, defensive tackle against interior offensive lineman. So I think that's where Hutcherson could really prove himself, or just the entire battle royale. I mean, that's the most direct, clear pathway to earn a job on this team, is win those battles and then carry that let it translate into, 11-on-11s when you get going on with that.
Yeah.
I think the Bucs, more than anyone else, we've talked about this before, they know how to find those diamonds in the rough along the offensive line and bring guys in here that not many know about and can make an impact on this team. I think depth is so important at the offensive line. You look at last year when Tristan Wirfs got hurt,
Yeah.
And, a couple other guys missed a little bit of time. Nick Leverett had to play in that Indy game after Aaron Stinney got injured. So I'm excited to see what Hutchinson can do. As you said, he's got the tools that if he can fully put it together, that he could really be something. The blueprint's there. It's just a matter of piecing it all together.
He's got to be healthy. He's got to have confidence in that knee, and he's just got to go balls out and balls to the wall and just play hard and be better in pass pro. We'll see. But the thing is, I think he's a player worth investing in. I think that whether he's a long shot to make the roster, but maybe you invest in him as a practice squad guy, as a developmental guy. And listen, if you're going to do any type of investing, the place that you want to do that is Muni Financial.
At Muni Financial, we help you live in the now.
Congratulations. We're so happy for you.
Thank you. And even though the now may feel very different, you still need to plan for the future.
How's retirement treating you?
Oh, just fantastic.
I know I say it all the time, but you really got to come up to Colorado.
Let's do it.
All right.
Yeah.
We can help you develop that plan to keep you on track so you can still prepare for tomorrow, today. Muni Financial. Plan ahead, stay ahead.
Listen, in today's economy, with inflation the way it is, you need a Muni Financial on your side now more than ever. Whether you want a vacation in Colorado, whether you want to retire to Colorado, managing your family's wealth means more to Muni Financial than simply allocating your assets. It means legacy planning, brokerage and advisory services, retirement accounts, college savings accounts, and insurance services. With 40 years of experience, let Muni Financial help you plan ahead and stay ahead. Folks, do what I did. I've got most of my financial investments with Muni Financial, and I can't recommend them enough. More so than they're just an advertising partner with Pewter Report, they also manage my assets and my retirement accounts. So do what I did. Call Muni Financial today at 1-800-868-6864. That's 1-800-868-6864, or visit muni.com, AMUNI.com. Matt, that was a fun show today. It really, to me, felt like that was probably the best Pewter Report podcast that we've ever done.
It's up there. It's up there. I think it just inched out Thursday's episode. So this, without question, the best podcast we have ever done.
Folks, if you were tuning in today for today's show, I mean, you just witnessed history. That's pretty exciting. Anytime you can do that, that's phenomenal. We're hoping the Bolts make some history again. And
please
come back from a 2-0 deficit, and it starts tonight against the Colorado Avalanche. So good luck to the Bolts tonight. The other thing about making history is we have a chance to do this tomorrow and actually have the best Pewter Report podcast episode ever tomorrow. And can we do that? I think we can. Why? Because we're talking Bucs camp sleepers on the defensive side. And it's always sponsored by Celsius. That's Elijah Ponder. For you folks at home that aren't familiar with number 44, read the SR's Fab 5. I did a little feature on Elijah Ponder, who dropped 35 pounds, played at 275 at Cincinnati as a 3-tech, and is now a 240-pound outside linebacker. So we'll talk about Elijah Ponder and the defensive players that we like as training camp sleepers. They might not make the roster. If they do, it might be number 52, 53 on that roster. They might make the practice squad. We'll see. But we're going to be back tomorrow at 4 o'clock Eastern time to talk about that here on another edition of the Pewter Report.